Meeting notes, 9/17.
Good job. Right.
It's placed here. I did not put it here.
I'm helping.
There you go. Yes. Supervisor Frazier, will you lead us today? Okay, welcome to our September 17th meeting of the Board of Supervisors for Trinity County. If you will stand and join us, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance led by Supervisor Frazier.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We are going to start our agenda today with two presentations. The first is to receive a presentation regarding the California North Coast Climate Change Assessment Report. There is no fiscal impact. I believe we have some guests online.
Yes, hello. This is Andrew Stubblefield and my colleague Rosemary Sheriff.
Hi there.
I have a presentation. Should I share my screen?
Yes, please.
Let's see. So can you hear me all right?
Oh yeah, we said yes to your
Okay.
screen sharing. Sorry that didn't come through.
It did come through. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so just a few things. I'm a professor in the forestry department at Cal Poly Humboldt. And I've lived here for about 20 years, coming on 20 years. So we were asked by the governor's office to lead the regional report. So I'll tell you about the report and we'd love to get your input. Let me share my screen. Does that show?
Yes.
Okay, so this is part of California's 5th climate change assessment. Every 5 to 6 years, one of these is issued. The goal of this one is to leverage diverse expertise throughout the state, contribute to the scientific foundation for understanding climate-related vulnerability, and then support on-the-ground implementation and decision-making at local, regional, tribal, and state levels, focusing on the needs of communities most vulnerable to climate change impacts. So our objectives are to compile the best available science and resources to understand local climate risks and vulnerabilities. So we have a lot of climate reports and data, and we're going to be preparing the North Coast version of that, sort of what specifically changes we can anticipate here over the coming century. So we'll be synthesizing that existing research and climate projections and new research on impacts and hope to meet the needs and context of your community. We also want to have input and involvement with the community, so have local priorities be addressed in the report, not just what Sacramento thinks that you should be caring about, but what you say is important here. What are the adaptation pathways to build resilience to current impacts and future impacts? So what can we get going to better address the challenges that are happening, such as increasing wildfire? So we want to create informational resources and tools to guide policy planning and action. So that could include local vulnerability assessments, adaptation planning, and community resilience. So this is showing the different regions. So each of these regions will have its own report written by a group of people from those regions. So you can see that, I don't need to tell you, California is a diverse place. So the concerns of someone in the inland desert regions are going to be very different than us in this North Coast region. So these are the counties that we've been tasked with writing about and soliciting information from. So that's part of this outreach. So here are the types of topics we've been asked to address. So what are the events and trends such as sea level rise, heat, drought, flood, wildfire, snowpack, temperatures, extreme weather? And then how will those impact our natural built and social systems? So how is this going to affect tribal practices and tribal groups and communities, biodiversity? How will this affect agriculture, water supply, ocean and coastal issues, open space and land use, built infrastructure such as power lines, housing? Is emergency capacity sufficient to handle what's happening and what's coming? How does this affect insurance and finance, workforce, economics, and then equity? So are all Californians getting the help they need? How does this affect governance? How will people be potentially displaced? Are they all going to move to the North Coast where it's not as hot? Here's kind of our timeline. So some of the components of the larger report have already been in place. So there's a climate data and scenario project that has been accomplished already that gives us climate predictions going all the way to the end of the century. Public engagement and outreach, this is part of that. Climate research related to energy supplies, some core issues, how will this affect tribal communities? And then our part, this regional and statewide synthesis reports. So we're engaged, the team that I'm representing here, public engagement, and then the regional report. So our themes are natural and working lands and waters, built infrastructure, and then social and cultural systems. So each of those will have a chapter in the report. So we're overseeing the logistics and tasks, and then will be the leads for specific topical issues and community engagement in coordination with the governor's office. We'll be engaging probably another 8 authors to write specific chapters that or dial in on specific aspects such as sea level rise or wildfire. Those are 2 we're pretty confident we'll be talking about. Bringing in the literature and research, what's already known, what's out there. So can we synthesize that in a way that is available for people to access? We'll be drafting and reviewing the report and then sharing the results out. This is the team that we have so far. So myself and Rosemary, who's here today, are leading the effort. We have Daniel Leip from Environmental Science, a member of the Cherokee Nation. Jen Marlowe, also from our Environmental Science Department. David Narum works for our California Center for Rural Policy and the Blue Lake Rancheria. And then Keith Parker is a lecturer in the Environmental Science Department, but his main job is senior fishery biologist for the Yurok tribe. So we encourage you to contact us with any input or thoughts on how climate change is going to affect Trinity County, the kind of things that you're worried about and concerned about here. And we want to make sure that gets into our report. So I don't know if we have time for discussion or comments, but I certainly welcome them if there is.
Yeah, we do have time for the board to have questions. This kind of a presentation isn't set up really for a lot of two-way dialogue, but there is for questions and answers. And I'll turn to the supervisors and ask if you have anything that you'd like to share at this point or any questions.
Just a quick one.
Please.
I don't know, maybe I missed it, but when do you project this report will be finalized?
Fall of 26 will be the final.
Supervisor Kogan, did you have something? No?
I have a quick question, just to help me understand. You said you do this every 5 years, but you project 100 years. Can you give me a little clarity on that?
Yeah, I mean, one way to think of it is that there's new science coming out every year, a new understanding of what's happening. So the incorporation of that new science is part of the assessment.
That makes sense. Thank you.
And Andrew or Andy, as I see it on your
Yeah,
on your
that's fine.
slide thing there, when you talk about input, there's a handful of folks here in the room and 34 online, and then you have the supervisors up here. Can you give more clarity about what kind of input is it that you would like to receive? You did loosely cover it, but I just want to give you a chance to be as specific and clear as possible so that we want to reach out to you, or if members of the public want to, we know how to and what to reach out about.
Okay. Let's see. So for an example, if you were someone living in King Salmon here on the coast, you're already seeing flooding at high tide of your front yard. So for that community, what they're most interested in is understanding sea level rise and perhaps getting help relocating to drier land. So I can imagine for Trinity County, you might have riverine flooding issues, or perhaps the wildfire issue is the biggest one, or protection of communities and critical infrastructure during wildfire. So if we hear from you that that's really the most important to you, we're going to make sure that's in the report and that we write about things that will inform what you're trying to do and the adaptation and resilience you're trying to prepare for.
Thank you.
Andy, can I add a little bit to that? This is Rosemary. So one thing you asked in addition was how you might want to contact us. And we are trying to seek information and as all of you as the knowledge base for your county. So we want information from you. You can contact us directly by email. We're also seeking out, we'll be having a community advisory board, and we're about to send out an announcement. So it's, we'll send out to the Board of Supervisors that information to share, but just if other folks are in the room and are interested, we're interested in all sorts of individuals participating. So we're really open to different methods. We also are having one-on-one discussions when folks are available to talk with us. And we're finding that these one-on-one conversations are really extremely informative. So Andy just gave an example of King Salmon, but we really want to hear from Trinity County folks.
Okay, thanks. And you had reached out, as I recall, trying to arrange for one-on-one discussions with supervisors. And at one point we had thought, well, if you came during the meeting, then we could stay and talk afterwards. But I know that didn't work out with this particular timing. Can you just share email addresses or contact information, something so that people have that and can reach out?
Yeah, those are in the last page of the presentation, if that's accessible.
Okay. Yeah. It is, since it's in the board book materials, people can access it online and we can look it up ourselves and pull it up. So thank you. We have it. We'll make sure we share. And when we hear from you about the community advisory board and such, if you're looking for potential interested parties and things, we can help try to communicate that as well.
Yeah, if there are other people, other groups or agencies or nonprofits that are thinking about these types of issues for your county that you could put us in touch with, that would be great. The other thing I think is useful for our report is to have case studies. If we could talk about a wildfire that happened in your region and how it affected, what was the emergency response like, that can, a story can really explain the situation on the ground better than sort of a dry fact sometimes. So that's something we're going to try to put into the report, or some case studies. And one of the things I think about is just how different the set of issues a rural community faces compared to the larger urban centers of California. And we want to make sure to highlight that for our region.
Okay. Well, top of mind to me, certainly our tribal organizations have a lot of people that look at these kinds of things very closely. We have our watershed center. We have Trinity County RCD, the Fire Safe Council. We do have now a natural resources division. Is that the right name? Did I say that right? Sort of? Okay. Not an actual division yet, but we have some people that focus on that. Sorry. So we do have a few of those. So we'll try to kind of collectively, as we respond to you individually and collectively, we'll try to get you more information about that and maybe some key contacts for those groups, because I know each of those groups cares very deeply and is very involved in that. Okay. Well, thank you both for joining us today and for sharing what you're working on and giving us the opportunity to weigh in. And as I said, when we receive your information about other things that you'd like to hear from the public about Community Advisory Board or anything else, we'll try to help you pass that along.
Great.
Thank you very much for allowing us to share this information.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Item 2 on the agenda for presentations is an update. County Administrative Office received a strategic plan update. Again, no fiscal impact.
All right. Thank you, Chair. So I'm going to try to share my screen so everyone can see. So this is actually a live update. These are not screenshots. This is a document that, or a platform, I should say, that we're now using to track the status of our strategic plan. Recall the board approved our 5-year strategic plan back on the 3rd of January of 2024. And at that time, we did not have like a platform to track progress. I was doing all that via, I would say, various Microsoft products, Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoint presentations, just different charts and graphs. The platform that you're looking at right now is ClearGov, and that is the same platform that we used to launch our budget book this year. And within ClearGov is a module called Clear Plans. So we're not paying any more money for this than we had been paying for ClearGov. We did adjust some modules that we were using because we weren't using some of the modules or one of the modules, and we were able to work with the company and activate this module in lieu of another module. So no change in cost there for the county. So what you're seeing is the overall progress of our 5-year strategic plan. So we're at 12%. You can see, and this is just a basic dashboard. So you can see the 51 key results that were part of the strategic plan. And I'm just going to go through a couple of them by example. The reason this starts in the June, July time period is because that's when I went in and was able to update this thing after we made some negotiations. The staff is what the staff is, so I'm the lucky one that gets to administratively work this and deal with the department heads and work with them and get updates and have periodic meetings. And that's just the way it is, and it's not an issue at all. It's just the facts of how we live. So in July, you can kind of see where we were at with the 5 big lines of effort from a county perspective. And then you go to August, and there was a little bit more percent complete. September, we had some discussions as far as like how we're going to update this. We've had some training sessions on it, and we are going to basically, it's monthly updates, but it's really more quarterly focused. But we're going to set ourselves up for some monthly updates. And as you go down and just kind of orientate everybody to what you're looking at here. As you go down here, these are the actual lines of effort here. They're numbered the same way they were numbered in the strategic plan that the board has previously seen and the public has previously seen. So the first one here, this is line of effort 1, objective 1, key result 1, and you just kind of go down the list here. This area here is the update. This is kind of it. There's some red ones, there are some missed ones because administratively, again, this is when I was getting everything kind of up and running, working through some nuances of the system. You'll notice the next check-in period is the beginning of October, and we've been working amongst staff, and we've kind of set up some rhythms to get these updates going, which I think will be beneficial to all of us. I'm going to run in and go through just a couple examples of what you will see or what you can see as part of this. So you can see here, these are all, live hyperlinks. So I go down here and I look at this particular key result, and then this is the actual key result that we had agreed upon in the strategic plan. This is when it started, this is when it ends. And when I say this, I'm trying to use my cursor as a pointer to kind of roll that around. Hopefully people can see that. And then this is the status update here. You can see, behavioral health and some others have kind of been leading this for us. And up in this area, you'll see key performance indicators, attachments, and tasks. So this particular one, does in fact have a attachment, and it also has task associated with it. So as you go down here, these are the tasks, that will be worked. And, the first one here, I think there's some general awareness amongst the county staff and county populace as far as the mobile crisis response service that behavioral health now provides and has been providing for a couple months. There were some stats and updates provided at the last board meeting. But this is just an example of one of the tasks, within this particular key result for this particular objective, for this particular line of effort. So that is an overview of a particular key result. I'm not going to go into all of them, but as you scroll down the list here, you can see ones that have, that most of them are in the works. We have a couple of them here. I'll click on this other one that is, quote, completed, which it is because the task was to benchmark. It wasn't implementation. It wasn't to go and do, a bunch of analysis. It was to actually create some benchmarks. In this one, you can see an attachment. You can drill down into it and pull up the actual attachment, I believe. Running a little slow, it appears. I will go and find that a different way and show you there it is. So here's the attachment that shows, and then this is the benchmark amongst, 5 other counties of like size, and the various items on the left-hand side here as far as services, stats and trends that was assessed as far as this particular key result. So that just kind of gives you an overview of the mechanism and the status that we're working on. Some folks will say, well, you're only 12% complete. Well, this is a 5-year plan, and there is no intention of, thinking that we should be a certain percent complete at any given time. It's a work in progress. We will annually come back and relook the key results, look at those ones that we have considered that are complete, and see if they're really complete, and if we can take those off the list, or if we want to revise those somewhat and create more details associated with that particular key result, or if we want to, like I said, revise it and create a new key result. Likewise, we will do that with all key results, and some of them might have passed their useful life expectancy, and we have a different focus, and we can adjust as we need to. But this is very much a living document, a living process, and that we will continue to refine. We are definitely just at the infancy stages of it. I would say we're at the crawl stage of using this, not only as a platform, but just as a concept. You'll see up here up top, there is ties to budget allocation. And because this is the same exact platform, it will be a possibility. We're not there yet, but there is some good possibilities and opportunities in the future to tie specific budget priorities to our strategic plan and to these key results. We will, continually work through that, and if that is something the board would like us to do, I'll come back at a future time, and we'll get into some more details on that. But again, that's just an option that is available for us as we continue down this strategic plan concept. Let me just roll through all 51 of them real quick, just to kind of give you a general idea, that there's obviously some that have not been really even started, and some that are started and just in their very beginning stages. We did try to focus this calendar year on those key results that the board identified in January as a 2024 priority, if you will. There was a number of those, so some are getting more of a priority than others, and we will relook that on a periodic basis as we continue this journey. So you just kind of see the whole, that's the bottom of them there. So this is something that I think is a pretty cool platform. It does have some real capability to us. It does lend us to some different longer range thought process, some longer term concepts, some longer term planning, if you will. I've heard some feedback from this particular budget cycle that we're going through. It's like, well, why is this such an emergency, or why is such a big change now? Well, I would say it's a change now. The way it's been highlighted, the issue, the root cause, is not new. If you go back to last year's budget hearings, if you go back to the previous year's budget hearings when Letty was sitting in this position, if you go back to other memos to the board with budget books, there's been budget issues. Libraries, animal shelters, sheriff services. I mean, all these have been continually talked about. We're just unfortunately at a crunch point now where the dollars are not adding up anymore. But a platform like this can help us bridge some of those planning gaps with let's say the realities of the annual budget cycle that we work through with the federal government, the state government, and the county government. There isn't as much long-term 5-year type of budget planning that you might see in the corporate arena, just because the way revenues are actually dealt with, received, the way the County Budget Act works. It's just different than the corporate world. I've seen both of them, worked in both of them, but it's just a little bit different the way we go through this annual churn of our budget cycle. That doesn't mean we can't have a little bit more of a forward-looking focus on, hey, where do we think we're going to be in 3 years or 5 years down the road from these big conceptual ideas, the strategic plan concept. We're not going to get down into the ones and $5 and $100, as far as where we think we're going to be in 5 years. But conceptually, idea-wise, priority-wise, we can have that look if we continue to utilize the strategic plan. What actual tool we use is not as important as keeping the strategic plan as a priority for the county as we look for those longer-term planning cycles. So I will stop talking there, and then if there's any questions, please.
Okay, supervisors?
I'm just grateful that it's all out in front of us. So I love the transparency and the opportunity for us to see it in real time. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I have two things. First of all, I just want to focus the public a little bit on one thing that might have slipped right by you. When our CAO said that he spent time putting all the data onto this platform because there was no other administrative way to get it done because of our staffing capabilities. I just wanted acknowledge that and honor that. We wouldn't have this work in front of us if he didn't take an extra load onto his desk and make this happen for us. So thank you. The other thing you mentioned that I do have a question on, you said that we do have the ability to tie our budget priorities to the strategic plan and that you could bring it back to the board for those future conversations if directed. Is that direction you are looking for today?
I mean, you can certainly provide it today. I wasn't really looking for much direction today because we're still in the, what I would say, development stages and learning stages of this. If it's something, just an idea, a concept that, yeah, you would like to see that, and yeah, we would like to have further discussion, I can certainly take that as direction. I'm happy to do that. But like you said, we're not there yet. I will readily admit that, we're not there yet. But I think we've come a long ways, and from where we were to where we are today to kind of where we want to get. It is a journey. It does take time. It will take probably 2 or 3, maybe even 4 budget cycles to work through this to where we're comfortable with it and people understand how those ties fit together. But again, it's a platform. It's conceptually, it can happen.
Mm-hmm.
It just, again, it takes some focus. It takes some work. It takes some time.
Yeah. Understood. So I would think that would be something, at least from my perspective, I'd like us to flag that for the future. Providing direction today probably just puts a burden today that we don't really need yet, but I don't want to forget.
Thank you. CEO Tuttle, I just want to echo my appreciation for the way that you have kept this alive, focused, and even bringing more to life by the work that you've done to get it into this, and then working with the leadership team, which I know is a burden on all of you. When we are operating in an understaffed mode, which we have been for a long time, and it just keeps getting worse, it's very easy to get caught up in, what do I have to get done today? How do I deliver the services the county expects of me when I don't have the people to do it? And yet, if we don't have some level of focus on what is strategically important, how do we get out of this mode? We'll recall that two of the things that we put onto the plan this year and then prioritize were the revitalization strategy and the healthy community strategy. And it was acknowledging we are in a bad place on both of those measures for the whole state. And if we don't do something about it, then we'll be in that place forever. And so having something that people can look to and say, okay, I know I've got 50 things to do and people are yelling at me about this, but I need to also be working on these things that will lead us out of this place. And so I'm just extremely appreciative that your commitment to this is strong enough to do the work that you did yourself, but also to keep the leadership team focused, because you always do what you always did. You always get what you always got. And we're paying the price of that right now in many ways. So thank you. I think this is great.
Thank you. I do want to, I can certainly appreciate the comments, but I really want to pass that on to the staff. If you'll see there on the contributor column, you'll recognize, all of the department heads in some form or fashion as you roll down this entire list. Many different people on staff are there. And, we have spent some time with this, some effort. We will continue to do that. But without the contributors here, without the staff below them, none of this will come together. So it's very much a team effort. And I appreciate those comments. One other thing I didn't mention is, this can all be published publicly. And that is my intent to do that. It will probably come about the same time we will get our new webpage up and running with Civic Plus, probably closer to the end of the calendar year. It'll sync up a lot better that way. It'll be a lot easier from an administrative perspective to link all these together. And it'll be in my words, it'll be a lot cleaner. Could I get it up today on our webpage? Probably so, and it would probably work. And it would be fine, but it'd be a little clunky from my perspective, and that is a very technical term, yes. So just kind of in the next 3 to 4 months or so, my plan is to get this all public. So if anybody is interested in it, they could go in and they could drill down on this particular key result and see what the actual status is at any given time. they're not going to be able to see, our staff back and forth and the staff update and some of the nuances of that. But they could see the percentage complete, and they could see if it's being worked on at all. And they could understand that a little bit if they so choose. So that's a little bit of it's really a short-term part of the goal with this, but it'll increase that transparency and increase that dialogue with the public as we continue this journey.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, just one last comment. I did want to note that your graphic here on the left-hand side of that screen shows, the 12% complete and then the rest on track. And then you show that there can be other indicators like minor disruption, major, and so forth. And again, I think the benefit of this for both the public and for the board and staff is when we get to places where there's minor disruptions, major disruptions, which there will likely be both of those at some point as we get this fully integrated and in use, that is a flag to us to be aware of. There are going to be times, probably exists right now, where we as the board have asked for things that physically can't be done because we didn't follow them up with the resources that make them possible. And so this can be the flag, not just a flag to say, staff, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. It's a flag to say, something's wrong. Let's talk about what it is. And then as the CAO was explaining, at the point at which we're ready and you can tie this to the financials, then you can say, are you putting the money there to get the work done? And make those conscious decisions. Anyway, I just think there's so much benefit to what we have in front of us, and it's great, even though it's in its infancy stages, to see it getting off the ground. Thanks to everyone. Anything else on your update?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will move to public comment. This time is for information from the public on matters not appearing on this agenda or within the consent calendar. All comments are limited to 3 minutes and must pertain to matters within the jurisdiction of this board. When addressing the board, please state your name for the record and address the board as a whole through the chair. No action or discussion will be conducted on matters not listed on the agenda. However, the chair may refer the subject matter to the appropriate department for follow-up or schedule the matter on a subsequent board agenda. And with that, we will open for public comment. Do we have some in the room?
Oh, no, it's her. Hi, Christine Edwards. I'm addressing today regarding to continue the volunteer program that exists right now at the shelter so that we can continue to not just euthanize. I know the sheriff and Ace and Mr. or Trent would like to have the TASA take over, which we can't. We are willing to continue to volunteer and help. And we spend thousands and thousands of dollars every year to keep the shelter with their generators. There's a lot of things we already pay, and we are going to be having a meeting to cover some other things. But right now, we want a volunteer program so that it can continue to help an adoption program. Years ago, the shelter was ran by one animal control officer and one employee. The rest were all volunteers, and they were open 5 days a week and adopting out animals. I know you look under the rabies, there's going to be dogs in there. There's laws we have to follow. I've talked to other counties. There's laws we have to follow, and there'll be animals in there. We don't want them just being put in there and put to sleep. It's not right. There's laws that also say, let's try to give them adoption or rescue. We're going to work on that. But right now, we want to have it okayed with you to let us have that program. And I know you and the sheriff talk to one another, have that program. It's already existing. We're adding more in. The supervisor of the shelter runs it. Another thing is the licensing program you have to have by law. You know who's doing the licensing program? Volunteers. It's not the shelter staff, it's volunteers. So it's a win thing. If volunteers are in there, and then we could help with adoption instead of just euthanizing, because you're going to get dogs in there. I talked to the sheriff many times. It's going to happen. And there's laws under health and safety that you have to follow. So you can't wash your hands. So I'm stressing that we have a volunteer program. I'm stressing that adoptions. We are going to have another meeting with TAS to see what we can do to help. But if we're going to have a shelter that just euthanizes, how do you expect anyone to support that? We can't support euthanasia and not giving them a chance to be adopted. So I appreciate all of you. I know it's a tough time. I know you're animal lovers. I hope that you guys can see in your heart that we really got to figure something out. I'm going to just take out other people in other departments and make sure that we get the money. But no, I mean, that's what I look at. Where can you guys just look to shave somewhere off? And then get the volunteer program. The supervisor who runs the shelter, again, already has a volunteer program, and we're looking at even more people to come in to volunteer. So thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Christine. Other public comment in the room? Yes, please go ahead.
Hello, I'm Barbara Jelisich, representing Trinity County Friends of the Library. Chris is giving you a packet that has a budget the Friends of the Library has come up with, and also a draft memorandum of understanding and a copy of the letter I'm going to read to you. Honorable Board, the Trinity County Friends of the Library recognizes how wage inflation, medical insurance inflation, staffing requirements, and other pressing obligations have led to the county's present budget crisis. The library is dependent on discretionary funding by the county for its existence. We want to help you keep the library open and operating. The Friends believe that the library could remain open from October 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025 at a reduced level if the Friends of the Library provide the county with approximately $35,000. We are working at acquiring sufficient grant and donation funding to meet this goal. The attached spreadsheet modified from the proposed county budget shows our calculations. We propose that the library in Weaverville go to 18 hours per week, Hayfork Library to 8 hours per week, and Trinity Center remain 4 hours per week. If we can keep the library open through next June, we will have time to work a solution for next fiscal year and hopefully long-term funding for the indefinite future. Please give us the opportunity to assist you in solving this problem. This would also look at less staffing personnel in Weaverville. There'll only be one paid person. Friends of Library would assist in volunteering on a regular basis. So we hope you'll give it serious thought. I know you want to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment in the room? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, and thank you for this platform. My name is Sandra Sternberg. I live in Burnt Ranch. I've lived in Trinity County since 1977, so I think I'm becoming an old timer. I feel like it anyway. I'm a retired teacher from the Burnt Ranch School District, and I also worked for many years at the County Office of Education as the county schools arts coordinator and also engine education coordinator. I don't really have anything in depth to say, except I wanted to express my concerns. I choose to live a rather minimalistic life, and the people in Trinity County, a lot of them do too. And I think I'm speaking for many people that we believe in education, and we believe in our children, we believe in our animals. And I really, really hope that there'll be some way that we can continue to have a library and an animal shelter. And that's about all I have to say, because I know it's a very complicated situation, and I just wanted to put my voice out there and let you all know that there's many people out here that care about these things. Thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Any other public comment in the room? Yes.
Good morning. Robin Johnson from Weaverville. And like the previous commenters, I'd like to just say I really hope that you'll find some funding, and in this next year, find ways to get dedicated funding for our animal shelter and for our library. They're the heart and soul of our community. I personally would be willing to do a subscription of dedicated funds to that, and I think other people might as well. I think that the animal shelter should not become a high kill center. Rather, it should remain as it is. It's still going to cost quite a bit of money to keep it open per what the law requires. I would certainly hate for the legacy of this board to be closing our library, which is the light of the community, and for it to close the animal shelter, which is a heart and soul. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jessica Mines from Junction City, and I just want to say that if you don't think you have a problem now, closing the animal shelter is going to be a huge problem later for you guys and everybody in the county. I don't really understand why you guys got rid of the grant writer, because that person could be here today helping out with a lot of things. That was a huge mistake. You guys need to hire that person back instead of spending money frivolously on things that don't matter.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Pepper. I live in Junction City. I'm really concerned about our animal shelter. We've already got a feral dog pack problem attacking people. These dogs are running loose. There's nothing happening that can take care of this issue. Or the other thing, and this is my personal thing I keep bringing up, our shelter should be on an earning basis. We should be fining people. We should have leash laws. We should have where I came from, I singularly supported the shelter because I had a golden retriever who escaped every day. It was $125 every time. I don't know how he got out, but they always picked him up. He'd jump in the truck, so he could go for a ride. And I'd pick him up, but they would have fined me if he hadn't been neutered. There would have been an additional fine. It was like $125 each time. So I'm nervous. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So I just wish we could figure something out to put our shelter like in Contra Costa County or Solano County. You pay if your animal isn't neutered or spayed. You pay if your animal does damage to someone's property. You're liable. Here, it's like they're packing, they're mixing with other dogs, and in Junction City, you can't go for a walk unless you carry a club or bear spray because of the dogs, because of the growers that they'll adopt all of these dogs and then they won't adopt them. They'll let them breed indiscriminately to guard their grow. And then when they move, they leave the dogs behind to starve, literally. So they pack and they rebreed, and it's really awful. And now it's getting dangerous. That's all I have to say. Please help us keep the shelter open. Please. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments in the room? Online? Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Chris Erickson, and I'm with the Trinity County Friends of the Library. I'd just like to say that we appreciate all the board's actions in trying to find workable solutions for these problems. I know that my health insurance that the county pays for is $1,241 a month this month. It goes up 30% on January 1st. If you figure that you've got 341 employees, that means that your health insurance costs for retirees is going up about $1.3 million increase on January 1st. And we appreciate how when the Board of Supervisors is doing their budgeting, what a blow that is, because your revenues go up 2% a year on property tax, and the property tax is given 60% to the state, and the county retains 40%. You're in a very difficult situation, and we hope that you'll accept the Friends of the Library offer to keep the libraries operating through next June. And we hope you can find some money to help the shelter out also. A lot of good volunteers down there, and there'll be good volunteers in the library system. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Veronica.
Good morning. Veronica Kelly Albies, Douglas City. I wanted to take a moment and say how much I enjoy working with the new budget book online. It's very interactive for community members. And for those that don't know, you can focus in on certain things. When you hit print, it'll ask you what you want a book of. So you can kind of focus in on things. The one thing that I am kind of missing as someone who does accounting is just your GL sheet, because there are a lot of GL codes that aren't there to be able to kind of follow the money, as they say. So that I have found a little frustrating. But the interactive book I think is amazing for the community to be involved and to take a look at what's going on with our budget. But if there is a place where you just have your good old fashioned GL spreadsheet or one sheet, that would be amazing. Just so we can kind of take a look where fiscal year 24 ends, and where 24-25 will probably begin. That's all I want to say. And thank you so much for all you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Ben?
Good morning, Ben Kellogg, Weaverville. Good morning, board and staff. We're roughly 2 weeks out from the next Board of Supervisors meeting where you will vote on the next budget. You've heard from your constituents loudly and clearly. They don't want the animal shelter to reduce services or close. Yes, tough choices have to be made, but not on the backs of these voiceless, defenseless animals. This problem isn't new. We've had this conversation every year. This time it's different, apparently. The county says they have no magic pot of gold to pull from at the very last minute, it appears, as always. I wouldn't want to be in your shoes. I mean that sincerely. You save the shelter, and you'll need to find other cuts, most likely within the sheriff's department, as they're the biggest share of the general fund. You don't save the shelter, and realistically, your constituents will have your head on a platter, most likely the next election cycle, for those that are running. I don't like the idea at all that the plan coming from the county and the sheriff is to take the health realignment money from the shelter and apply it to the jail medical program to hire medical staff to administer intake questionnaires for inmate intake. This is a task that has historically been done by correctional officers in tandem with Mr. Novak. From my understanding, this is either not being done 100% or not trained on currently. This is mismanagement, and the buck stops with the sheriff. This to me appears to be a cover your butt move because the sheriff is dealing with 2 lawsuits in regards to inmate suicides. This solution of hiring medical staff doesn't get to the root of the problem. Its sole purpose is to show the public that the county is doing something about this horrific incident. The jail will be the downfall of this county from a physical standpoint. The sheriff has pulled all patrol staff off the streets and put them in the jail as it's mandated to do so. That's a huge public safety issue within itself. There are also other mandates too. I say not on the backs of these animals and not on the backs of the public safety issues that closing the shelter is going to cause. Perhaps if the sheriff actually went to the shelter more often regularly, you all would have a deeper understanding of what was going on. I know you all are animal lovers, including the sheriff. However, we only seem to see electeds when it's political season down at the shelter. Leadership should be more hands-on at the shelter. It's only going to take one roaming dog that's been called into animal control, biting a citizen in public, who then files a lawsuit to undo any cost savings closing the shelter would have caused. The county hasn't learned to stop making decisions that they are told are a bad idea, and unfortunately then get sued for it. For those who aren't living up to what they promised, those in county leadership should be having discussions with those people, and those people should be improving. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris?
Hi, Chris Williams, Weaverville. I want to speak on behalf of my dogs, Coop and Wit, loves of my life, shelter alumni, that we need to keep the shelter open to the public. It enhances public health and safety, animal welfare. Without a shelter, many of these animals would suffer from malnutrition, illness, and injury. It helps reunite lost pets with their owners. We see that all the time on Facebook. Adoption services, shelters provide a place for individuals and families to adopt pets, and offering a humane alternative to purchasing breeders or pet stores. And it reduces the need for this mass euthanasia, which will be your legacy. Shelters also help with education and community engagement. They help reduce future animal overpopulation, and they improve relationships between animals and people. There's an environmental impact that stray animals can negatively impact our local wildlife and ecosystems through overhunting and spreading disease. Economic considerations, while I know the shelters have a huge operating cost, they might reduce expenses in the long term by limiting the resources required to deal with stray animals and emergency services for animal attacks and animal-borne diseases. I also want to say, keep our libraries open. This is, oh my gosh, there are access to information and education. Libraries serve as a community hub. They support literacy and learning, and they bridge that the digital divide. And it also helps preserve our culture. It's equitable resource access. They are safe and inclusive spaces. They provide programs and services. It's not just a place of books. It is so much more than that. And the board has certainly found creative ways to prevent commercial cannabis from thriving, which would be a great tax revenue base for us. It has spent so much money on lawsuits and email investigations, all the things. So I plead, please get creative and find the money that we need. I know it's out there. Thank you.
I have no additional raised hands.
Okay. Thank you. With that, we will move on from public comment, and we'll start with reports from department heads, if there are any to provide.
Morning, Chairman, members of the board, Ruby Fierro, Chief Probation Officer. And good morning. Wanted to just take advantage of the time this morning to be able to demystify one of the pieces that probation has that we report to. I've talked to you previously about things with DJJ closing. That's the Department of Juvenile Justice, which used to be called CYA. And within that process, there was a office that was created by the governor, the Office of Youth and Community Restoration, OYCR. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of that. There's going to be things that I'll be bringing before the board on agenda in the future. So this is a little bit of foundation, and there was a letter that was sent out recently that provides some better context. And so I am, as the Chief Probation Officer, I'm part of the Chief Probation Officers of California. We refer to that as CPOC. That is like our association for the state. And we recently sent a letter to the OICR. And that letter was also copied to the governor's office, to the Deputy Cabinet Secretary, the Deputy Legislative Secretary, the Deputy Legislative Affairs Secretary, Department of Finance, and the Assistant Secretary of the California Health and Human Services Agency. So this letter was written in response to a data report that was provided to the Senate. I watched the Senate hearing, and some of what was said was rather inflammatory toward probation work. And also the data, there was a lot of incorrect data and data that couldn't really be tracked as to where they were even getting the numbers from. So when DJJ closed, the entirety of the juvenile justice system was brought back to counties. So the youth that used to be sentenced to DJJ up to age 25 are now in our juvenile facilities. It has really changed the dynamics of our state. And so with that, the governor developed this OICR group to be able, if you look at their website, it talks about how they're leading the change of juvenile justice within the state. We actually had to start doing this prior to OICR's existence. So DJJ closed in final closure June 30th of 2023. And we had to start changing things about where youth were going back in 2021. They started to not take the kids there. Not a huge impact to Trinity County specifically. We haven't had a large number of youth that have ever been sentenced to CYA or DJJ, and it's actually been 2 in the last 11 years. So that's not significant, but for us, numbers wise. But for the process of everything that we have to do in our reporting, it has. And so this OICR group or office, they are also now the ones that review our reports for all of our youthful offender block grants, our JJRBG, which has to do with the Juvenile Justice Realignment Block Grant, which funds the closure of DJJ. And there was one more. Nope, that was all of them. And so this is the group that is reviewing our reports that we send out every May. And the reports that are sent out is tied to about $160,000 a year that come into our department. And so what I really want you to understand is that the Office of Youth and Community Restoration is a group that we now have to
Office Assistant C.
provide this information to, and is who is reviewing all of our plans. And it used to be the Board of State and Community Corrections. So historically, and I know you're familiar with that group with having oversight of our facilities. So it's shifted to this group, our office, who is also still just learning how to operate. They're still building their functions. And there's a lot of question in how data is being pulled, how they are representing information, even at the state level. And I know you guys don't usually ask any questions during department head report out, but if in the future, I'll be bringing up more that will be agendized. And so if you have any questions, then I'll be happy to explain more.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes, please go ahead.
Just clarify if you would, you said that the state and community corrections has shifted to, is it Office of Youth and Community Restoration? That's the shift?
Within juvenile, yes. And for the county jails, for the sheriff's office, they are also the ones who are overviewing everything regarding sight and sound between juveniles and adults. There are some rare cases where there's issues where they would be in the same institutions.
How do you see this this current shift playing out in terms of rehabilitation and the ability for our young people to kind of rise up out of these circumstances? Is this another or a change bureaucracy layer that's going to get between the kids and success because of, I just know sometimes it's the paperwork that holds good things up. So it's sounding like it's frustrating experience. That's what I'm picking up anyway, that it's a frustrating experience. And so I'm just curious how that's going to fall out onto the actual lives of the young people.
This has been a very difficult experience statewide, and quite honestly, this office, they're trying to do good. I think everybody's coming from a good place, trying to make sure that the right things happen for you. They just don't have necessarily all of the information to be doing what they're doing. They're new. They're learning a lot. And as far as for the youth, right now there's a lot of things that create just more barriers and more difficulty in what we do. The reporting and how we report. They don't have policies in place. They have an ombudsperson, and they come into facilities and appropriately so, youth concerns and grievances should be addressed. And there's many different layers for that. They have another one as well, and they don't have policies in place. So when youth are complaining about, maybe they don't like the food, yet it just gets handled in different ways, and the data is delivered to the state in ways that aren't very clear sometimes. So it will get better. For the individual youth that are in these systems, I don't think that it really creates any deficit for the kids. It just makes probation's job harder right now.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the work that you do for our young people. Matters.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Report from CAO.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to start off with a couple thank you letters for staff or recognition. These are both from the Clerk Recorder Assessor Office and for Lisa and Jessica. And all very, very positive comments. I just want to, publicly thank them for the efforts they do and the way they treat individual members of the community who come in a very, very public-facing organization. They rate treatment as very good, very helpful, everything explained to their satisfaction, very good overall experience. So received 2 of those in the month of August, and just very grateful for that department and their employees and their positive interactions with the public. If you could let me share my screen again. This will probably get me into trouble at some point in time, but that's okay. I wanted to bring to your attention issue with solid waste down in Burnt Branch. We've had some solid waste discussions in here before. There's been, comments made and issues addressed in here. Unfortunately, this is another break-in down at the very rudimentary and limited, facility we have down in Burnt Ranch. And it's still perplexing to me what people are breaking in for and what they are doing and why they're doing it. But you can see the destruction it causes and then the resources that we have to spend to go down and fix this stuff up, fix locks, change locks, fix facilities. It's not only frustrating, but it's a little disheartening when this happens. We're trying to provide a service, but then this kind of stuff happens. So we are looking at different forms of a kiosk down there, or of a structure down there that's more hardened, if you will. But time and experience has proven that probably will not help out a whole lot either. But we are looking at different options. So I just bring this to the board's attention, one, for your awareness, that we have issues like this at our remote sites and that we are, working through them. Fortunately, this happened when no employees were on site, it happened after hours and that kind of stuff. But it is something we have to deal with when we get back there. And then a plead out to, any of the public who might be aware of this or of an understanding of this to, do what we can do as a public entity to maybe curb some of this just nuisance, unneeded destruction that's out there. But also always remember, still live and work in a great place. All right.
To the Burnt Ranch situation.
Certainly.
I just want to say I reach out periodically to the attendant there just to check on her. It is one of the, I almost always, I would say at least once or twice a month, I get either a voicemail or an email with the public being in a constant state of concern for her safety and for her just capacity to return to work with such destruction on a regular basis. It's really frustrating. I think it really degrades morale. And it's something that the community is equally completely irritated with and frustrated with. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe a metal container and some, they've come up with some pretty ingenious locks now for the cargo containers. That might be something that would at least keep her space to consider, but it is deeply frustrating, and the community is constantly speaking out towards that. And so I think everyone would be more than happy to support in any way that we can make that better for her, especially, and for her safety. So thank you for bringing that forward.
Yeah, thank you. We are in fact looking at the revised cargo shipping container office option that's already fully enclosed with metal. And, obviously there's a cost associated with that. So, but as the community is concerned about this, I would only speculate that there's probably some also information as far as, when and how these things happen, and would just ask that if there's any way to help curb those in these remote sites, that we do that in a lawfully and legally way.
Anything else?
Only other thing I have is just a reminder for the public that budget hearings are on the 24th. You did hear one comment about the budget book out there. It is a different format this year. I encourage folks to get in and look at it. If you've got questions, please ask. But it is a different format. The content's the same, and then we will work through all that on the 24th.
Okay. Thank you. I know it is a small but important thing, but I appreciated you ending there with your slide and picture and reminding us we do live and work in an amazingly beautiful place. And it comes to me as I've been involved in some of the community meetings that, especially as we go through this budget hearing and the potential for impact on the shelter and the library, people were actually specifically asked at one point and said, okay, that's all the bad news. What do you have for good news? And so I do think that at some point we probably ought to invest some time in talking about some very positive things. Off the cuff, I was able to share some things last night, and I think it does help that people don't just see everything that is concerning and negative. So thank you for setting the stage for that. Okay. For our supervisor updates, reports from the members of the Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Gogan.
Had no out-of-county travel. I did want to mention something that's coming up. Excuse me. For children, the dental clinic is coming to Trinity County on October 9th through October 12th. It'll be at the Weaverville Veterans Memorial Hall, and it will take children from K through 4th, and their guardians need to be with them. They will also get a $30 gift certificate if they're traveling from out of Weaverville to the Veterans Hall. You need to make an appointment. It's not a walk-in thing. So get hold of the Trinity County Public Health or Trinity County Office of Education, and they will give you an email address to get an appointment for those 3 days or 4 days that they're having the service there at the Memorial Hall. The services that are being offered will be dental exams, x-rays, minimally invasive dental treatment, including fluoride varnish, dental fillings, and tooth extractions as needed, all free of cost. All the dental people are providing their services for free. So this is a great opportunity for young kids to get maybe their first dental checkup, which is a great thing. And everything there is free, and including your gas mileage to get there if needed. Also, I have a town hall coming up in Hayfork on the 25th of this month at 6 o'clock at the Roderick Center. They've been very well attended, and I think we're making some local progress out there. So I'd like to see as many people out there as possible again. And again, that's on the 25th Wednesday at the Roderick Center from 6 to probably 9 o'clock. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor Carpenter Harris.
Last week, I have no out-of-county travel. Last week, after the board meeting, I went down to High and Palm and had a lovely community meeting with the folks there in their community hall. It was very interactive, and I'm really grateful that I had the chance to do that. I'm grateful for the people of High and Palm for always being so engaged and coming forward with ideas and solutions. And then I am going to be in Junction City at 6 p.m. on the 19th at the Junction City Elementary School to just have a conversation listening session for folks to be able to address issues and ask questions regarding upcoming budget. I just want to make sure that I'm really hearing everyone in their place and giving a chance to listen to their concerns. I attended via Zoom a NACO meeting, kind of doom and gloom, unfortunately, but we are still just fighting the good fight. I know that our school superintendent here is also fighting this huge fight, as well as all of the rural communities, to try to get Congress to move and take action on passing the Farm Bill. They believe an extension will come to fund it through the end of this year, but if it does not pass securely, our payment in lieu of taxes dollars will not be en route to us, and Secure Rural Schools has already lost all of its funding, is exasperated. So our roads department depends on a lot of that. And so if you have the opportunity, public, please send a letter to Jared Huffman and anyone else in Congress, whether it be in the House or the Senate, that is from our region, and try to just ask them to please push for this Farm Bill to come through. It also holds within its capacity so much of our natural resource dollars that are necessary for the improvements around fire resiliency and so forth that we need in our community. And it also holds within it our SNAP funding for food for folks who are in need. So there's a lot of things wrapped up in that giant bill, and it definitely needs to work its way through the process. So that is all I have for right now. Thank you.
So you didn't catch that part about I said the positive things.
I do want to say that I've had a chance to talk to, and this is the truth too, I'm not just making it up. I have the chance to talk to some of the downriver school teachers and visit with some of the kids. And I just love campus in the fall, whether it's the elementary school or whether it's university level. There's just a tremendous amount of excitement that comes with the starting of the school year, and football and volleyball and all of the running arounds of the kids. I see those jerseys when you run into the grocery store, and I truly, truly just enjoy the excitement of campus in fall. So I'm grateful to all of our school teachers and our coaches and the moms and dads that fill the concession stands and do everything that makes sports in our community just going strong. So that is positive, and that is true.
There you go. Thank you very much. Supervisor Frazier.
I had a North Coast Unified Air Quality Management District meeting in Eureka on the 12th, where we did appoint another person to the hearings board. So now the medical professional position is filled, and I think we have pretty much a full board, just looking for alternates now. Other than that, last night I had a town hall meeting in Kettenpalm for budget issues, and it was fairly well attended. A lot of good back and forth. Some of it veered out of budget land into other county stuff, but it was beneficial, I think. And tomorrow night I'll have a town hall meeting in Mad River, so at Lamb Creek Church, for the same thing, is give people an opportunity to speak to what they would like to see in our budget. And what I've been telling people is bring me solutions. Don't tell me what's the matter with our budget. I'm well aware of that. Bring me solutions, and some people have, and whether or not they're actually feasible when we look into the legalities of it is another story, but at least people are coming with ideas, and hopefully that continues.
Great, thank you. Supervisor Cox.
I had no out-of-county travel in the last 2 weeks. I will, however, leave tomorrow for RCRC, and we did have some feedback at our town hall that people get a little confused with our alphabet soup. So I think maybe we can collectively try to work on that a little bit. I'll begin. RCRC stands for Rural County Representatives of California. It's a 40 county member JPA that focuses on advocacy and legislative policy for the needs of our rural and frontier counties. And I'm privileged to serve on that executive board. Each year at the annual conference, counties are asked to provide a basket for auction. And the proceeds of that go toward identified nonprofits of the county of the chair. This thanks And in a certain respect, I think compensates a bit that county for the fact that one of their supervisors for that year spent countless hours working toward the needs of this body that then benefits all 40 counties. And so while on the one hand, we may look at that and say, well, okay, we'll contribute toward that basket. When is it our turn? The reality of that is probably or potentially never. Even if it was a fully equitable system, that would be once every 40 years. And the reality is you need to be able to very well and in a kind of a large scale way house and provide for about 60 people who come and visit your county and do a lot of business over the course of those 4 days. So in giving toward that, I did try to say, well, then how can Trinity County benefit? And I'm so pleased at the merchants who have stepped up to say, let's provide a basket that invites people to come and visit our beautiful county and see pictures such as our CAO displayed a few moments ago. And so people have contributed a total of 13 nights lodging, 3 of which are on a houseboat. There's a river rafting trip. There's a paragliding experience. There are plenty of gift certificates for food and treats, and there's some bling in there. And so what we hope is these folks will come and say, wow, I didn't know you could have so much fun in Trinity County. I'll come back and bring 40 friends. So that's the way we hope that one turns out. And thank you again to those who helped to make that possible. On September the 4th, I spent 3 hours in dispatch and in the jail itself. I want to thank Jail Commander Mucklow for his time and insights, as I was provided a firsthand look at the staffing requirements and shortages and the efforts that are being made by all of our Sheriff's Office staff to meet the needs of the county. I want to acknowledge the hardship each of our employees are under because of our current staffing shortage and publicly thank each of them for their dedicated service and the sacrifices of time and energy that they are making. With that, I would share that I received an email from a Del Norte County supervisor expressing the Sheriff's Office staffing issues they are facing and asking if we had any advice for them. What I could share with him was, you're not alone. We are in your same boat, but it was interesting to hear that their concerns are very much ours and that our neighbors are facing the same challenges. Not so much the misery loves company, but we are doing everything we can, and this is our reality at this time, and we're looking for opportunities to change that. And so in bringing suggestions to the table to try to fix things, I would say, if there are any relatively young community service minded folks looking to explore a career in a wide open field, you have an opportunity in front of you that might be of interest, and you certainly would have a job in your own backyard. On September the 5th, Chair Lutweiler and I hosted a joint town hall for Weaverville. Approximately 65 people attended. CO Hill was in attendance and provided some clarity regarding questions that were raised. And also our former interim CIO, Letty Garza, provided some, I think, really timely perspectives on the general fund. We talk about that, and I think perhaps the public doesn't know exactly, which departments draw from that and the needs that are there. So I appreciated what she stepped in and shared. The feedback that I received was that the evening was informative and the understanding gain was appreciated. I certainly hope so. That was our goal. Regarding First 5, the executive director I shared with you that we had just hired on January the 8th resigned. The commission held an emergency meeting and decided to try a new approach. So rather than working to again fill that executive director position, which is part-time and non-benefited, we instead stepped back and looked to move First 5 under Health and Human Services via a memorandum of understanding. HHS will then hire a project coordinator to backfill that executive director position. There was a good bit of discussion on the idea, but the motion did pass unanimously. So there are a number of reasons why this would be an advantageous arrangement for First 5, not the least of which is program stability in an environment where funding is rapidly changing and extremely volatile. So for all the services that those provides, we are certainly looking to how can we make sure we protect those. So this board will soon see the MOU on an upcoming agenda for requested approval, as it will need to be on record for the county. At that time, our HHS director can further explain any details and answer any questions that you may have as we consider the strategy, but I wanted you to have a heads up. The PSA2 meeting was canceled for lack of agenda items. The fire chiefs are hard at work as usual. There was nothing consequential to this board in that meeting, but I would like to acknowledge that at this time, we do have a crew of volunteers fighting fire in Los Angeles County. And so our thoughts and prayers are with them, and we are certainly grateful for the service of all of our firefighters and the first responders countywide. End of report.
Thank you. For District 1, California Jobs First, I was in Anderson for a meeting between our last board meeting and this one, and can tell you that even though it seems like it keeps getting pushed out, the latest is that in October, funding decisions will be made and announced. I'm aware of at least 5 projects that were submitted for funding through this program out of Trinity County, and by guidelines of the program, there's supposed to be at least 1 that does get funded. So we'll see how that pans out when the details come together. I'll be at another meeting, the advisory committee meeting for California Jobs First coming up in October when we make these decisions and start to announce. I was in Mount Shasta City last week for the Sierra Nevada Conservancy Board meeting. There will be 1 more board meeting this year before I take over as the voting board member for our 3-county region. This organization does some great work, and we can certainly have and will continue to benefit from it. And I look forward to working as the voting member. We still have a voice even when we're not the voting member, but it just gives us a chance to be active right on the board. As Supervisor Cox noted, community meetings helped with the one in Weaverville, since we share a part of that in District 1. Then met in Lewiston, and then last weekend in the North Lake area last night. And as in the other meetings, we discussed budget challenges, funding sources, other things. It was last night where one of the individuals said, okay, so now tell me some good news. So it's fresh in my mind. On the consent calendar agenda, but there is a Lewiston Community Association Park grant, and this was just wanted to make note that there's a group there trying to get funding through a program, and it will work to enhance the ball field at the Lewiston Park. And I wanted to make note that community members can sign a letter of support at the Lewiston Hotel. There are up to 5 letters that can be put in with the grant. One of them is on the agenda today if the board approves it, and then they wanted a community one and several others. So just making people aware. Disaster Council met last week for updates and collaboration. Apparently it was one of their quicker meetings, but we still had good representation from folks and talked about some important things taking place in preparation. Even though we're getting closer to the end of this year's fire season, that means we're moving into potential flood season. So there's always something around the corner, and these folks are always working very hard to be prepared. There is a group on the coast that does economic development work for this region, a lot of it for coastal counties, but also supports Trinity County. And they have asked me to facilitate a portion of their economic development summit later this month. So I'll be in Eureka for that. I can't remember the date, but coming up pretty soon. And that's all for my updates. Okay. Report from ad hocs, Supervisor Carpenter-Harris.
I have been in email contact with both the Narumuk and the Senungwe tribes to schedule the dual presentations before the board. Other than that, I have nothing to report.
And just a question, I think, one of the things that came when that first was coming up, we were hearing from tribal representatives that they were concerned that they were still not getting notified of things and within whether it was planning department or cannabis or whatever and so forth. Is that also something that's being worked through the things that you're doing, or is that separate from what you're trying to focus on?
One of the things that I've been communicating with both tribes about is kind of is highlighted mostly in the last email I sent was what are we doing? What are we doing? And what would you like us to be doing in terms of building county relationships between the county departments that do have land use issues or that are looking to develop or what have you? And then how could the tribes be properly given an opportunity to speak into that regarding predominantly land use and water use? And then also, how can the county begin to help support the two Trinity County tribes to have a greater and more recognized voice at the table with federal agencies and so forth? Because both of the tribes are not federally recognized, they're often omitted in terms of having seats at the table. In some scenarios, they are told to, well, you can come as part of the community. So I think that there should be a little more weight added to their voices, and that's just my personal opinion. But that is something that we're trying to build. I would like to build our county influence and our county's voice in such a way that we say our tribes should be recognized and have a more robust opportunity to speak into land and water management in this county.
Great.
So I'm asking them what that looks like to them and how we can make sure that we articulate that appropriately for what they can staff and have time to do and what level they want to operate in that. That's my hope.
Great, thank you. Supervisor Cox, update from the Funding Sources Ad Hoc Committee.
Okay, I think we have a PowerPoint. So I will say, while Susie's getting that pulled up, thanks to Chair Lutweiler for pulling this PowerPoint all together. It's been a little bit of a work in progress as we have added some new awarenesses to it. But, you know, my portion of this ad hoc really was in researching the possibilities available to us with what's called a community service area, how that it's a type of a special district. There are many similarities and a few differences. So I'll kind of run us through this, but then Chair Lutweiler will wrap up kind of our thoughts going forward. So the options available really are on this list. We could look at a sales tax increase. We could look at the transient occupancy tax being raised. We could look at what I'm going to describe to you here in a minute, community service areas or special districts, the nonprofit support, which we have seen a great amount of community willingness toward, and then perhaps targeted grants. So if we look at a sales tax increase, couple of things you would look at, well, what would the percent maybe be? So you can see there on the bottom what kind of a percentage we would be looking at and the expected revenue that could be generated off any one of those options. If we waited until a general election cycle to roll around, the estimated cost, and I say estimated because a ballot by itself is approximately $70,000. And so it just depends on how many items are placed on that ballot because there's a cost sharing that goes on. So when we say estimated 20,000, it's even more of a ballpark than the 70 for the total. So a rough timeline for implementation for that would be 26 months, and you would start to see revenues generated from that about a month later. If we were to hold that special election, you could do that again at the total cost of the ballot would take about 6 months to do that, and then you would see revenues flowing again 1 month after that. One thing to consider, however, is that if we were to educate the public well on exactly what this means, which there was quite an effort a couple of years ago when interim CAO Garza was here. I know that Supervisor Gogan participated with her in traveling to the different communities and holding public meetings to try to really inform, what does this mean? Who does it affect? What do our neighboring counties and others throughout the state implement in their regions? And when we look at the results of that election, Those communities where the information was provided well, they did see the benefit that it would be to our county and not on the backs of locals. And it really was the regions where they did not have time to get everywhere. It only failed by a narrow margin. With that, I would suggest that there is potential for this. And if the community decided that, well, no, we don't want to spend the $70,000 for an election more timely, we want to wait for a general election, you could consider the potential. I'm busy talking about a transient occupancy tax when we're looking at a sales tax increase. Were you going to nudge me in a minute? Okay. Hold everything I just said for a few more slides. Let's look down. Go ahead, Susie. Thank you. I'll just give you a moment to kind of peruse this. The one that I would highlight for you, we're back on sales tax. Apologies. Consider, if you would, that if you shop in Anderson, and I only point this out because I really like a similar store in Anderson versus its neighbor in Reading. And I'll make the extra 8 miles because I like the store better. But I notice that my bill's a little higher, and that's because the city of Anderson does have a 0.5 cent sales tax for the city of Anderson proper. But you can also look around at Anderson and see some great things they've been able to accomplish. And so I just offer that for thought and consideration. Okay. Now to the transient occupancy tax. So pulling back the thoughts I just shared, and then considering that if you were to wait 2 years to put that on the ballot and it were to pass versus if we were to make a group of citizens were to make that effort at this time, and each year you could realize an extra $300,000, then in essence, you've given up $600,000 in order to try to save $70,000. So it's a thought process for your consideration. And here is a list of neighboring jurisdictions and the transient occupancy tax that they charge. Okay. And now to look at a funding option called the community service area. You are somewhat probably familiar with a community services district because we have several. So examples would include our water district, the fire district, the PUD. The newest one that you've seen be created would be the ambulance district. And so for that, when that is formed, it is a process that goes through LAFCO. The geographic area must be defined. The benefit to those participating in payment must be analyzed and the cost per benefit realized. And these go on the ballot if it's now I'm not talking about the community services district that you see in front of you. I'm talking about a special district that I just described. Those go on the ballot with 2 initiatives. With the first one, you must identify your governing board. And with the second, you must identify your funding source. And the community must pass both of those. You must approve your board of directors, and you must approve with 2/3 vote the funding that you're willing to pay per parcel in order to see that service be provided. The difference with a community service area that you are looking at is that the governing body remains this board of supervisors, but there is still a specified amount that follows that same process I just described, where by 2/3 vote, you approve the amount that will support that service. If there is any concern about leaving the Board of Supervisors in charge of that, you can know that that's why it has to pass by 2/3. That is, those funds are directed to that service and cannot be altered. So with that, there does have to be a bit of an in-depth look at what is the defined area. If you're going to do this county-wide, there can be zones identified within the county, and there can be a variance of payment between the zones based on the amount of service that they would receive. So these are all things that would have to be looked into rather deeply, and mostly it's recommended that you hire a consultant to do that deep dive for you. Again, you can see the rough timeline when revenues would begin, and down at the bottom, we reached out to the assessor's office to find out how many parcels are taxed in Trinity County. That number is 12,576. We just did the simple math to learn if it was equal per household, what those revenues would look like. Again, there can be folks who would be able to be exempt from that. And again, with zoning, you might have varying degrees. So this is a rough ballpark, but it does give you an idea of what that would look like. Okay. And then to consider nonprofit options and options going forward. I'm going to hand this over to Chair Lutweiler. This was more his area.
Yeah, we just wanted to acknowledge, as Supervisor Cox pointed out, assuming for the moment that there is support for an increase in sales tax or transient occupancy tax or introduction of community service areas or special districts, there is a minimum of 6 to 12 months if you do special ballot, and it's 26 to 30 months, depending on if you do a general ballot and then wait for the funds to start flowing. So what is the short-term option? You know, we heard from public comment today, please find some way to keep things going. And so this is where we looked at, well, one of the options is for nonprofits, whether they already exist or new, to step up and say, well, we can help. And so one way that could happen is they could provide bridge funding. And we've heard some of that happen when the Friends of the Library put forward their proposal. It said, you know, we're looking to bring in $35,000 and we're looking to provide volunteers. And we can then, with that and the funding you're providing, we could keep this library open through June to allow more time to figure out where the funding comes from long term. So it's a perfect example of what we were contemplating here. And that could be taking over existing services. It could be providing some services that just aren't provided at this time. And then I also just wanted to note that besides what we were looking at through these kinds of options, CAO Tuthill had reached out to the schools and to learn more about what their libraries already offer and what they could offer. So many efforts trying to find out ways that we can try to bridge this, because as noted, you know, no one wants to be in a place of voting to cease funding these entities and services, but we're facing realities and trying to figure out our best way forward. And this we thought was one of them. This was just that summary level view of what Supervisor Cox was covering so that you can see things. And one of the things I appreciated about how Supervisor Cox put this particular slide together is you can see there for transient occupancy tax, if we go up from 5% to the 10%, it's about $300,000 or more a year, and it's funded primarily by visitors to the county. If you look at the county service areas or special districts, the range of between $60 a year and $180 a year would bring in $750,000 a year up to $2.2 million a year. And that is funded by property owners. And it's funded by the property owners who live here and who don't live here. Then the sales tax that can, between a 0.25% increase and a 1% increase, brings in $250,000 to $1 million. That is funded by locals, if you will, and visitors. So who's spending money in our county? That's where those sales tax dollars come from. And then the nonprofit, it's basically funded by donations, grants, and so forth. And interestingly, we were in the Weaverville community meeting, and I did it in other meetings, we were asking people, you know, what level of support would you have for these things? And it was very interesting to see. And one thing I just want to point out is we believe that the people that are showing up are the ones that are most concerned about the libraries and the shelter. And so it's not surprising that there was a pretty strong percentage of people saying, yes, we'll support these things because we want this to happen. What we need to know is, does the general population support that? So when we look at next steps, one thing is informal polling. So you heard an example of some very informal polling that we were doing in those meetings. Absolutely can't extrapolate that data to say this is representative of the county as a whole. And then Supervisor Cox mentioned Letty Garza, who I believe has volunteered to sort of step out and lead a similar effort to what she did before to try to both inform, engage, hopefully gain support for, and come back with some information that could help us guide our efforts. But the other step that we can take as a board, and it's something that we'll need to consider as we look at the budget and beyond, is research consultants who can assist with formal polling and recommendations for moving forward. And if CAO Tuttle, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you said that Butte County, who currently has over 100 of these community service areas, also has a sales tax increase on their ballot, and they did use a consultant to help them basically determine what do you have the best chance of being successful with? Is it a sales tax? Is it something else? What level of an increase do you have the success with? Let us help you with your campaign, if you will, of engaging and informing. And so in November, they'll have the results of that. And but they use a consultant, so we can work with them, and CAO Tuttle has already been talking to them about, well, what did it cost and what did it look like, and did you feel good about their services? And of course, the real test will be, what does the November election show? So right now we're just laying out what we can do to have a plan for moving forward. And then also just wanted to highlight, because it's also come up in meetings, continued efforts to support economic development through our revitalization strategy and collaboration with local leaders and regional partners. And I think it's important to note, amongst the many staff limitations that we have, there is no personnel dedicated to economic development in Trinity County. We don't have staff for that. It would be great to have staff for that. Many community jurisdictions do have economic development directors, and they go out and they try to bring businesses in and they support them. And there's lots of ways that can be beneficial. We don't have the resources for that, but we do actively participate with other organizations. There's a regional economic development group, a regional workforce development group. I mentioned another workforce or economic development group on the coast that, because of our outreach, is now working to help us with things. So there are ways in which we can do that, and we need to continue those efforts. And again, probably we need to do a better job of highlighting some of that's going on and the benefits. And then researching grants and the resources available to pursue them. I think we've mentioned before, and we heard today in public comment about bringing back a grant writer that we had in the past. We actually do have a number of people on staff that do grant writing within various departments and divisions. There was one that was specifically focused on housing that is no longer with us. But the county can, if we have the funding and choose to allocate it that way, work with CSAC, which is the basically state level association of counties instead of just the rural counties. And they have grant writing and management services available on a variable level. So you don't have to go hire a specific grant writer. You can say, I will contract with you for this level of service. And it can be for a couple of grants, it can be for a bunch of grants, it can be, the range is pretty broad. But what's great is we don't have to go recruit, train, hire, all that kind of stuff, even though that's great when you can spend the money and that comes right back to the county. But if the real thing is quickly get somebody who can help you write grants, there's a service that's available to us. And we have talked to the people about that. In fact, the COO for CSAC, Paul Denchek, I think is how you pronounce his name, was here and met with us recently. So those are all things that we're looking into. The thing to be aware of with the grants is they are very specific about how the funds can be used, and there's a lot of administrative work that goes along with them. So you have to be aware that what you're taking on. And I don't know what the number is. Susie could probably throw some number off the top of her head, but we actually benefit from millions and millions of dollars of grant work. But there's clearly more that we could do. And so those are options that we have for next steps, and not looking for anything specific today other than this ad hoc committee was put in place to go research these things and come back to the board. So this is your update from that ad hoc committee. It includes what could be next steps that we can talk about at future board meetings. And really with that, the plan right now is to dissolve this ad hoc committee because it has done what it was set out to do. If at some point we feel like we need another ad hoc committee to actually pursue some of these things, that can happen. But just trying to follow the intent of the rules around ad hoc committees. They do their thing and they move on and they're done. So we are, as of this meeting, dissolving this ad hoc committee. And we'll take questions from supervisors. Sure.
And I may need to find this out later, I don't know, but on the on the option for the fee per parcel, would that be, I know a number of people own multiple parcels, so was that done with the idea that every parcel a person owns would pay that just because it's a taxable parcel, or was it if you own more than one, your occupied parcel would be the one that you paid on?
The answer that comes off the top of my head, and we can certainly reach out to Colette at LAFCO for clarity on that, but it is per parcel is how that developed. So there's a difference between a developed parcel and an undeveloped parcel. And these also typically, if you have any contiguous undeveloped parcels, stop at 5.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
And I think Supervisor Carmen Harris should point out one other thing is we didn't get into some of the levels of details, especially Supervisor Cox learned a bunch more about the CSAs. But one of the things that we did learn is people have approached it with things like the zones that she mentioned, but also with the ability for people to request a refund if they have a like we hear with sometimes with other fees associated with the county. I'm applying to get a refund of this amount because I just simply can't afford it. I can document my inability to afford this.
Okay.
And so that way, if the county pursued this and if they felt it was appropriate, then they could put something in place that said, generally, we're going to make this that every single parcel pays this. Then there can be exceptions. Well, I own multiple parcels, or I am in poverty and can document that because of whatever criteria. So there's a lot of minutia to this, which I think is why in the end you need a professional that lives and breathes this to go through that.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. With that, I do want to thank again the people. I'm glad that some of you came back in. We appreciate in public comment all the great input that comes in. And I know that we don't engage in the moment by design of the meetings, but please know that you're heard and that it does help us form opinions and prepare for what comes ahead. So, John, did you have a point of order?
I have when you vote for taxes, that has to be during a general fund or general election because special elections fewer people go to. So the federal law states you have to have a general election. That's what happened with Hayfork on their school pond, and that's why they were sued. So you just need to look into that.
Thank you, sir. Okay, with that, let's take a 10-minute break.
So we can't do it in 6 months, so now we're at 26. Oh, good to know.
I think that's why. Really? Is he a little upset?
No, he just was in a hurry.
Damn.
It just, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Seems like there'd be three guys in there doing that. So tomorrow, Susan? You get tomorrow.
Yeah. I asked him. Well, let's have a conversation after this, see what you want.
Okay. Thank you for coming back in. We are ready to come back into session and address the consent calendar. These items include routine, non-controversial matters and will be acted upon by the board by one roll call motion. If a member of the public has any questions or comments on an item on the consent calendar, they may provide them now. A member of the board or staff may request an item be pulled and considered separately. Is there any public comment about the consent calendar?
I have no raised hands.
Any supervisor want to move something or staff from the consent calendar for discussion? Excuse me. No? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve consent as presented. I will second.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Carpenter Harris?
Aye.
Chairman Lutweiler?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Under county matters, we have these items include non-routine or controversial matters and are listed alphabetically by department. A member of the board, staff, or public may request that an item be heard out of order.
So I have a request if I could, Chair. I would move to discuss and or take action to add a letter of support for Golden State Connect Authority's grant application and find that the need to take immediate action came to the attention of the board subsequent to the agenda being posted. The urgency is that the grant application is due on Monday, September 23rd, 2024.
Okay. So we have a motion. And do we?
I will second that one.
Have a second?
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Carpenter Harris?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Chairman Lutweiler?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. And Susie, if you'll let us know when the right time is to address that item.
Yep, we'll
After-
add that one as a subsequent after we finish the last county matters item.
Thank you. Okay, on item E1, Auditor Controller, approve a budget adjustment for fiscal year 23-24 for auditor/court remittance, Department 8467, increasing transfers in by $8,226. Approve a budget adjustment for fiscal year 23-24 for contributions to other funds, Department 1990, increasing transfers out by $8,226. And approve a budget adjustment for fiscal year 23-24 for general fund contingency, Department 9901, decreasing appropriations for contingency by $8,226. Increase in general fund appropriations in the amount of $8,226. Current contingency balance is $119,256.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Christine Gaffney, Auditor Controller, and I am here to answer any of the questions you may have on this item.
Did anybody have any questions before we go to public comment? No? Okay. Any public comment?
Seeing in the room, I have Veronica.
Veronica, did you have a public comment on this?
Oh, hold on. Go ahead, Veronica, try again.
Thank you. Veronica Kelly Albies, Douglas City. This kind of carries through the next couple of agenda items. On the contingency fund, I was just trying to find where that's at because the math as I'm going through these next three items doesn't match my stack and add method. So I was just wondering if these are the actual amounts that are in the contingency fund, because I could not find that on the budget book or any of the fiscal year 23-24. Thank you.
That's just start way back. Stack and
Okay. I do think is there any other public comment?
I have no additional raised hands.
Okay. I do think at one point when I was looking at some of these, the order in which they were on made it so that it might like, well, wait, if it was here, then it went down to there. But we can address that perhaps during our discussions. So we can entertain a motion if we have no more questions.
I'll move to approve as presented. I will second.
And under discussion, anybody have anything they would like to discuss? I will just say I did have some questions in preparations for this, and it's one of those that the reason that we're having to do this makes absolutely no sense to me, but it is a bureaucratic matter outside of our immediate control, and so it's a necessary step, and I appreciate you making sure that we stay in line with where we're supposed to be, even when that line makes no sense.
Yes. And I would wonder if it might be good to, at some point on an agendized topic for maybe just discussion or addressing, not like there's an action necessarily that we could take. But we did see when you read the backup data, the world didn't used to be the way it is today some years ago, perhaps reasons why that is, or can it be any different? But as far as the matter before us, there's absolutely nothing our auditor can do about what she has to do, and she needs the funding. So, but I think that this, I'll leave that comment till later.
Well, and just to add a little bit of context, my very brief looking into this is basically that decades ago there was some move made and a snapshot taken of funds that flowed here and there to support the courts, and therefore we must continue to fund at that level, even though that doesn't make any sense anymore. But I think at some point we may have to look at, is there anything we actually can do in the long term? Maybe, but not right now. So with that, there's no other discussion. Call the vote.
Supervisor Kogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Carpenter Harris?
Aye.
Chairman Lutwiler?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to stay up here because I think I'm the next one.
All right. Item E2, Auditor Controller, approve a budget adjustment for fiscal year 23-24 for Public Defender, Department 2170, increasing services and supplies by $27,010, and approve a budget adjustment for fiscal year 23-24 for General Fund Contingency, Department 9901, decreasing appropriations for contingency by $27,010. Increase in general fund appropriations in the amount of $27,010. Current contingency balance after prior request is $111,030.
And I'm here if anybody has
Okay.
any questions.
Does anybody have questions on this one? No? Any public comment?
I have no raised hands.
Okay. And Susie, if you would just generally, because again, I shared the concern at some point about trying to make these numbers up or add up. But basically, we have coming into these meetings, we have a contingency balance left over from the year, and we didn't actually tap into it until about a month ago, I think, which was pretty darn good. But as each one of these is presented, then you show, well, if that prior one was taken, it drops the level to here. If this one is taken, it drops the level to here. And so it keeps depleting.
Correct.
And I think just at one point when I looked at backup materials, that they were like out of order.
Out of order.
So it
yes.
didn't make sense, but they do make sense if you look at them sequentially or comprehensively, I guess is the better word to put it.
Correct. On the draft agenda that you saw, they were out of order. And so those balances did not make sense. The way they're listed here, that's the balance that will be if the prior, so for example, on E2, we started with 118,000 prior to today's meeting. That is the current That was the current balance that we had remaining in contingency. You just approved item E1, which took 8226 from that. So we reduced the 119,000 from there, which brought us down to the $111,030. Then we're gonna, if you approve this one, we'll take the 27,000 out of it, which will bring us down to the 84,000 that you'll see in the next item's fiscal impact.
Okay, hopefully that's more clear for Veronica and others who may have been looking at that. And I guess one other follow-up question is, people might be confused because we're several months into our 24-25 budget fiscal year. We're about to meet to approve that, which has its own contingency fund. And here we're still talking about last year's contingency fund and adjustments to last year's budget. So maybe just a second to explain that.
It has to do with the timing and the fact that the county is on a modified accrual accounting. And so we move expenditures back into the fiscal year where they were actually experienced as opposed to when they are actually paid. And so given that timing, we run into issues where we get a bill for services in June, in August, and we have to pay that against their 23-24 budget. And if they don't have sufficient budget authority, then we need to come now at this point in time and ask for that contingency and that increase in budget authority. So that way that invoice can be paid and posted back in our accounting records to the 23-24.
And that might also help people understand why in the budget book, it shows current year to date for fiscal year 23-24. And you think, well, that was June 30th. Why are we still year to date? Well, it's because of things like these that haven't still posted.
Correct.
Okay. I think just clear as mud as usual, but thank you.
Clear as mud as usual, yes.
Okay, any public comment? Did we already do that?
We tried that.
Did, and we had none.
All right, so we have a motion?
No, we don't yet. I will, so moved. I'll move to approve.
We have a second?
Second.
Right?
It doesn't look like we have discussion, so let's vote.
Supervisor Carpenter Harris?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Chairman Lutweiler?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
E3, Community Development Building, approve a budget adjustment for fiscal year 23-24 for planning, Department 2800, increasing services and supplies by $60,000, and approve a budget adjustment for fiscal year 23-24 for general fund contingency, Department 9901, decreasing appropriations for contingency by $60,000. Increased fiscal impact, increase in general fund appropriations in the amount of $60,000. Current contingency balance after other requests is $84,020.
Morning, Chair, Supervisors. This item is actually in regards to the LOTA grant, which we received about a year and a half ago. Work commenced in August of last year, went through the end of the year, and then picked up again this year. And essentially, it all falls to me. When it came time to do the reports, I did the reports. When it was time for me to do the reimbursement requests, I did the reimbursement requests. And come to find out, this grant does not operate as the grants that I'm familiar with, where you kind of just receive those reimbursements along the way. They can only reimburse when the items are completed as far as tasks. So there are 3 tasks for this particular grant. The first one is a siting study for a broadband initiative, get middle mile, last mile, connect up to digital 299. And the second is environmental feasibility study. And the third is permitting activities. So when I went to do my reimbursement request, I was told last week that you can't do those until, number one, the work has to be completed for the particular items, which our July 3rd invoice showed items 1 and 2 completed, but we had already depleted our account, our money that we would be able to pay for that. So typically you have money that's sitting there and you get reimbursed for money because you're paying the invoices for your consultants. So as we went to pay our consultants, we weren't able to it was quite a large sum of $58,000 and some change. And so we did not have enough money left to actually meet that payment. And so that's basically why we're here today, is to ask for money to pay that so that we can go ahead and get reimbursement for the first two tasks that have been completed. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. If you have any questions, I'll answer them.
You wanted to challenge Susie for the Clear as Mud Award? Is that what you're trying to do?
I really apologize for this.
Yes. Thank you, Ed. I appreciate it. Any questions?
No, it sounds like he knows what he's doing.
Any public comment?
I have no raised hands.
Entertain a motion?
I move to approve.
Oh, second.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Carpenter Harris?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Chairman Leutwiler?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we now have subsequent item. Don't know what number that is, but we have it. Authorize the chairman to sign a letter supporting Golden State Connect Authority's grant application to the National Telecommunications and Information Administration's Digital Equity Competitive Grant Program on behalf of its rural member counties. That is a mouthful. Supervisor Cox.
So here's another example of grants being written on our behalf. This would not cost us any match. There would not be any administrative costs associated with it. It is simply our membership into RCRC, which I described in my board report, that gives us the opportunity for one of their staffers to go after this money on our behalf. So the public hasn't had a chance to see this, and so I'm going to read the summary. This came from the Barbara Hayes, who works on our behalf there. At the behest of California Department of Technology, Golden State Connect Authority, and so that you're aware, that's its own JPA under the umbrella of RCRC, is preparing to submit an application to the National Telecommunications Information Agency Competitive Digital Equity Grant Program. There are $1 billion available nationwide for competitive applications that address regional needs associated with closing the digital divide, specifically increasing access to digital tools, hardware, and software for community residents in effort to increase digital literacy and use by 8 specific covered populations, one of which is individuals in rural areas. Golden State Connect Authority will apply for $12 million that would be used by each of its member counties to purchase hardware and software for locations throughout your communities where the public and specifically covered populations could access the equipment to improve use and literacy of digital tools. Golden State Connect Authority will be using a portion of FFA Last Mile Award funds as a match, so no match is needed from member counties. And since this is a national competitive application process, she adds, it is a long shot, but we feel it is important to throw our hat in the ring on behalf of our member counties for these resources. Representing all of you in this application is our strength, as is the work you have all supported under Golden State Connect Authority thus far. And so she needs these applications. She's asking for them by the 20th, which we could certainly provide if we moved forward with this today.
Thank you. And just a question, because this was not on the agenda before and in the backup materials, does this need to be read, the letter?
It would be helpful for just transparency to the public to read it. It's a short 1-page letter.
Okay.
It will be added subsequent to this meeting. We will add it as, and it will be available for the public to review as well. And there is a copy in the public binder.
Okay, so we will make efforts to make it available afterwards, but just for best practices as recommended by County Council, the letter is dated today to the Honorable Gina M. Raimondo, Secretary, U.S. Department of Commerce. As a member of Golden State Connect Authority, Trinity County appreciates and supports Golden State Connect Authority's GSCA application to the National Communications and Information Administration's Digital Equity Competitive Grant Program on behalf of its 40-member rural counties. The goal of the NTIA Digital Equity Competitive Grant Program is to fund initiatives that ensure communities have the access and skills to fully participate in the digital world, regardless of their background or circumstances, including Included in GSCA's application would be funding for each of GSCA's member counties to execute their digital equity plan throughout their respective communities and with the purchase and placement of computer hardware and software necessary to establish access to digital tools and learning for NTIA's identified covered populations, individuals who are 60 plus years of age, state incarcerated, veterans, disabled, racial or ethnic minorities, rural, ESL, low-income households. This application will build upon and complement a Golden State Connect Authority application to the California Capacity Grant Program later this year. GSCA represents 40 of California's 58 counties, those that comprise rural California. This part of California has experienced historical disinvestment of broadband infrastructure that is now being addressed through public and private investment at record levels. With connectivity comes the need for addressing digital access and digital literacy needs for rural communities. Access to quality broadband, when paired with access to equipment that connects to the internet and the knowledge associated with its use, will open the door to increased economic development opportunities, access to enhanced learning, employment, healthcare, and financial services opportunities, as well as the ability to improve public health and safety. This grant is a big step in the direction of addressing these needs in Trinity County and all GSCA member rural counties. On behalf of Trinity County, please give GSCA's application your highest level of consideration. We look forward to being a partner in closing the digital divide in rural California. Signed, Chairman, Trinity County Board of Supervisors. Okay.
I would move to approve.
I have no raised hands for public comment.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
All right.
Thank you, Jill, for the quick.
Well, certainly.
Supervisor Carpenter Harris.
Aye.
Supervisor Cox.
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier.
Aye.
Supervisor Kogan.
Aye.
Chairman Leutwiler.
Aye.
Thank you.
Let me see. In terms of a report out from the last closed session, the item was pulled. So there's no report out other than to say the item was pulled. And with that, we are adjourned.